made it here. I want to try to pour out a lot of information in 2 hours. I'm quite confident you're going to learn something within those 2 hours. I've been in real estate a long time, and when we do study groups, which I'll talk a little bit later about this education program that's offered through this building and online, but even the study groups that I facilitate, I'm in front of the group. I probably learn 1 or 2 things every single week. Just because no matter how much you know about real estate, every area is different. Every municipality is different. I'm doing 2 projects now, and then we'll do another 2 more in Evergreen Park. But before I did the first one, I didn't know that Evergreen Park, for an example, I didn't know that they required a $10,000 escrow that you have to put up before you do any and apply for any of the permits. So little things like that, where if you were going to do a real estate deal in an area that you've never done before, there's things that you need to know about that area. Obviously, you can call every municipality, but it's great to have the input from other people. Sometimes we have attorneys in the study groups. We have that quite often. I bring people from title companies and so forth. So it's great. It's real estate's not a destination. Investor's not really a destination. It's a journey. It will continue forever. I'll keep learning, and I think you should look at your journey the same way, that it's never going to end as far as developing as a real estate investor. Just have a show of hands, how many people have already either owned a rental property or flipped a house or wholesaled a property? Okay, so we got a couple people. Great. And how many people want to do one of those things? Okay, everybody. Okay, good. That's what we want to do. If you're already an investor, my hope is that this information will help you to advance your strategies and your success. And if you've never done before, maybe this is what's going to help you do that very first deal. Okay. Just a little bit about myself. You can read it. I won't go over everything. But I was a teacher and coach. I think you'll kind of see the teacher in me. Used to be in front of a classroom. I was a teacher and coach for years, and then got involved in real estate even when I was teaching. But I've really been focusing on it off and on since 2008. And very heavily over the last couple of years full time. I've done a number of real estate deals. Everyone say, how many have you done? How many have you done? It starts to get ridiculous to count. I spend more time counting 1, 2, 3, but probably about 100 real estate deals. Okay. This is, by the way, my email address, and that's my cell number. I always give a disclaimer, a condition when I give out my cell number, and that is that that's my personal cell that I have with me 24/7, and because I manage some of my rental properties, I need to be on call 24/7, and I have a kid in college and one that lives in California, so day or night, when you text me, I'm going to wake up. So if you decide at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you can't sleep and you'll text me about something thinking I'm going to get in the morning, no. Now we both can't sleep at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because you woke me up and I may not get back to sleep. So I ask for I have pretty open business hours. I say 8 in the morning to 8 at night. I think 12 hours a day is enough time for you to get in contact with me, but I appreciate nothing before 8, nothing after. As a real estate investor, you don't have to get up at 6:30 in the morning anymore, so why do that if you don't have to? So just respect that. I would appreciate it because that's my personal cell phone number. Okay, now the title of this, or when I sent this out on Meetup, or if you heard from somebody else, it was basically how to wholesale properties to either you can do this to my company, my groups, or you can do this to anybody. So it's kind of a basic concept. We're not going to get that deep into wholesaling. It's going to be more about analyzing a property, how I analyze a property, and if you want to refer a property to me, what you need to do to analyze it before you bring it to me. I have a lot of brokers approach me and other people, I want to wholesale properties to you, or I want to find properties for you. And then number one, it takes me a lot longer to train them than it would be for me to probably research for the properties. So that's one of the reasons I'm leveraging my time here. Notice I'm not training a person one-on-one today. I'm trying to leverage my time and have multiple people. So if I can train as many as possible on what I'm looking for, then you can actually bring me some valuable properties that they have a real shot at us wanting to get to them. Because that's something that we're always raising capital and we're always looking for properties. And feel very blessed yesterday. We got 2 offers accepted. You know, sometimes you can make 10 offers in a day or whatever, and you don't get any accepted, and you're back and forth. And some of my investors that haven't done it as long as I have kind of get discouraged. Oh, when are you going to get a property? And all of a sudden one day, boom, 2 of them get accepted. That's just kind of the way it goes. So we got 2 more offers accepted in Evergreen Park. So we may have 4 flips going just right in Evergreen Park alone. So anyway, that's a real blessing for us. And that's kind of how it works, you know, you make offers, and then, you know, once in a while you get them accepted. How to legally wholesale, and legally is very important because if you don't have a broker's license, there's some things you can do in the state of Illinois and some things you can't do, and I'm going to give you a big picture of that. First of all, how many brokers, licensed brokers, real estate brokers do we have in the room? You know, we got Dave. Anybody else? Okay, just one. All right. So Dave is on my team, so he just joined my team fairly recently, and you know, we're looking at a lot of properties, and I submitted those 2 offers, you know, through Dave on those 2 deals that got accepted. So here's what you can't do. Think about this. The state regulates the performance of buying and selling real estate, right? There's certain laws and regulations around that. In order for you to sell or to represent or to buy or sell real estate that you don't have an equitable interest in, you're not the owner, you need a broker's license. Okay, in the state of Illinois, there's brokers and there's managing brokers, and that broker has to work under a managing broker. It used to be called brokers and agents. Hey, he's a real estate agent. Well, I don't know, maybe they wanted to charge more or justify their fee, but now they're all brokers. But some are managing brokers and others are just brokers that can buy and sell real estate. So this makes sense if you keep this in mind, that not anybody can just go, otherwise it would be like the Wild West out there. You'd be calling, you'd see a property, and you'd be advertising that property on Craigslist and everything else, and everybody would be doing the same thing, and you may know what you're doing, and you may not know what you're doing. In either case, the deal could fall apart, or one of the parties, buyer or seller, could get hurt. So you have to be a licensed broker to be involved in that transaction, to be the middleman, unless you have an equitable interest in the property. Now, an equitable interest can be accomplished a couple different ways. You can get the property under contract, and that contract can specify that you have the right to assign that contract. So to give you an example, I find a property as a real estate investor, and I think it's a great deal. I analyze the property. I think it'd be profitable as a fix and flip or a rental, whatever the case may be. I negotiate a price with that owner. I get it under contract, and normally there's some clauses in there, like a 5-day inspection period, attorney review. Again, this is not a wholesaling class. I might do a whole other one on wholesaling, but just to give you a big picture, you get it under contract, and then also in the contract, I always write them very plainly in the contract so it's not misunderstood, that the buyer, at the buyer's sole discretion, has the right to assign this contract within 21 days of acceptance, or within 30 days of acceptance, which means I can get that property under contract, and then I can go out and shop it, and I can assign it to somebody else for a fee, okay? So that's legal wholesaling. It can be done by that contract, or it can be done that I have a signed option. I have the option to buy it at a particular fee, or a particular price. And again, I can shop that option out. Now I can sell you my option right, okay? So that's legal wholesaling without a broker's fee, or without a broker's license. Does that make sense? Any questions about that and how you have to do that? You have to have equitable interest, okay? So I can't just advertise somebody else's property, okay? Yeah, Tanya?
Do you provide assignment forms or suggest where we can get them?
Yes. And some of the things that I'm offering today are available for people that are already part of the overall training. You're a part of the overall training. Right in your back office, there's actually contracts and so forth. And I can also show you some of those as well. So, and we'll talk more about the training if you want to go and get access to everything like some of the people in the room already do, okay? So yes, you can do that. You can definitely do that. The other thing you do for everybody, you can use the broker contract, the Board of Realtor contract. The 6.1 is the version they're on right now, and you can just write it in where it says other provisions. You can say right in there that the buyer, at the sole discretion of the buyer, has the right to assign all rights and responsibilities of this contract. And then you usually have a time period, within 30 days of acceptance, 20 days of acceptance, okay? So you need to disclose, you need to be honest, you need to be ethical, you need to let that person know. And I don't tie up properties like that unless I really think I can help them in a buying situation and help them get that sold. I don't want to have, 60 days, somebody, I'm gonna put it on contract for 60 days. That's unfair, I think, to that person. Do it for 30 days. So listen, if I can't get this thing sold in 20 days or in 30 days, I'm gonna release you the contract. I don't want it tied up. Now, if I get close to a buyer, I'll let you know, maybe we'll extend it, but I don't want you to have to make any commitment to me, over, let's say, a 30-day period, something like that, okay? I believe that real estate is all about helping. The more people you help, the more money you're gonna make. You don't have to worry about the money you're gonna make. If you're helping enough people, that will come back to you. You'll be financially rewarded. Sometimes, and this is just me, but sometimes when I'm thinking about, man, I'm not making enough money or I need money, this is the question I ask myself. Are you helping enough people? All right? So it's like, oh man, Lord, why am I not making enough money? I come back on me and say, am I helping enough people? Is there more people I can help? So turn it back on that. It's like, okay, if I helped more people, I wouldn't have to worry about it financially, right? So take that approach, that real estate is creating win-win-win situations. The more people you help, the more people you're gonna make. Now, the more you know, the more people you're gonna help. If you only know wholesaling, you're gonna only know this much, or only know fix and flip, or buy and hold. But if you know subject to acquisitions, if you know how foreclosures work, if you know how short sales work, if you know everything, the more you know about real estate, then the more people you're gonna be able to help on it, obviously, because there's gonna be more people in that sphere that you're talking to. That's one of the things here. When I decided to go into real estate and put my heart and soul into it, I wanted all the training that's available, because I knew the more training I got, the more people I could help, and that would translate into income, okay? So getting it under contract, we talked about that, an option purchase, a double close. So here's what a double close is. It was real big before kind of the real estate bubble burst. A lot of title companies were doing this. I have a title company, I have a relationship with the title company that will still now do a double close, which is uncommon. And so what a double close is let's use the example with Earl and Les here. So let's say I've got a contract for Les, and let's say Les might be a financial institution, whatever the situation is, I'm buying and I've got it under contract for Les. But for some reason, maybe my assignment period is over, or I didn't set it up that way to begin with, or I was going to flip it to beginning. We're doing this exact really same thing, except it's not really a double close simultaneously, but we're kind of doing the same thing in a property we found in Crestwood, where I was going to buy the property, we were going to flip it, but then we got an offer before we even closed. We got an offer to sell it to somebody else for $13,000 more than what we just paid for it. So if that was done simultaneous in the same day, that would be a double close. So let's say I've got it to Les, and I decide that now I'm going to sell it to Earl, but it's either too late or I didn't write it in to be assignable. So a double close can be, listen, I don't want to bring the money to the closing. I want to use Earl's money that he's paying me to then pay Les, okay? And so in a double close situation, the title company that I use, if you get involved with us, I'll give you the name and cell number of the manager that can make this happen. So how that works is that as long as we do full disclosure, so the title company will say, hey, listen, Les, we have a closing for you scheduled on X day. We want to let you know that the money's not coming from Randy. Randy actually has the property sold already. The money's coming from a third party, and then we're going to take and we're going to hold that money, and then we're going to use it to pay for you in the close. That's full disclosure. And they're going to say, hey, Earl, Randy doesn't actually own the property yet. We haven't closed with Randy yet. He's buying it from Les, but he's going to use the money that comes in for your transaction. He's going to use it, and we're going to do, some people call it a simultaneous close or a back-to-back close. And they will do that as long as it's full disclosure, open and honest. If Les is okay with it, if Earl's okay with it, the title company will do it. Some title companies still won't do it. Feel like, I could get sued, or maybe that, because people took advantage of that in many cases back in the early, 2000s. So some title companies said, no, you will never do that, use that money. But I have a title company locally, it's actually a national title company, but they've got maybe 13, 20 offices here in the Chicagoland area, and they will do that. So that's what a double close is, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, so those are different ways that you can get paid with real estate, finding and analyzing a deal and either getting it under contract. I'm also proposing to you that there could be another way, that I could pay you not for soliciting or representing somebody in the real estate transaction, or not for advertising it for it, but for analyzing and doing a rehab estimate for me, okay? So that's what I'm really gonna train on today, is what I'm looking for, how I analyze it, and give you some basic information on estimating rehab costs so that your numbers could be more accurate as far as what my contractors would charge, okay? This would be negotiated between you and me. Again, I would not be paying you for bringing me the property. That would be a broker. That would be illegal, okay? But if I teach you, if you can analyze it, and you can give me the rehab estimate, and you can show me my profit, that's more like a consultant on the deal, right? Okay, so we've got to make sure that you're not, representing, you're not selling a property you don't have. You're like, Randy, here's, 5 properties, or I'll give you a property every so often that you have analyzed, you've actually gone through it, and you're doing estimates for me, okay? Rehab estimates, all right? Okay, so let's look at that a little bit. Oh, first, just some basic terminology that we might hit on today. I didn't know where I should put the slide before or after that introduction. But just a couple things, and I'm going to be throwing things out, and I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So after rehab value, we always talk about that, the ARV. So I probably will never say that in long form the rest of the day. I'll say ARV, after rehab value. So that's when you're looking at a property. Yes, it's great to know what it's worth now in its present condition, but I'm more interested, which you've got to become an expert at, is what is it going to be after we rehab it to the level that I do a rehab, okay? So after rehab value, so that's kind of a future value after all the repairs and remodeling is done. A comparative market analysis, they call them a CMA. So if you work with a broker, brokers do CMAs, okay? So what they do is they look at comparable properties. I thought I had that on that slide, maybe not. So they look at what's called comps, which are comparable properties. What's that?
On the first one you have.
Okay.
Comps.
Oh, yeah, I talk about, yeah, good, thank you. I thought it was on there somewhere. Did it late last night, so some of it's foggy.
Are we allowed to take a picture of that or not?
Yeah, you can take a picture of it. Yeah, you just have to pay me for modeling if I can.
I'll ask you to move over, Randy. I know what you look like, so.
Doing a comp on a property, which is a market analysis on the property, that's only as good as the broker was trained or that you have inputted into what those comps are, because we're going to talk about this. What is a comparable? What's comparable and what's not a comparable? Keep in mind the brokers that you work for. A lot of people, oh, I want to be a real estate investor. Oh, and I got a broker to work with. That could be good or bad, okay? Depending on the broker's experience as a real estate investor. Brokers are paid when? When you buy or sell the property. The higher you pay for the property, the more they make, normally, because it's usually on a commission basis based on the percent of the purchase price. So do they have a financial interest in you paying top dollar for a real estate property? Yeah. Even though there could be a great person, ethical,
Not
nice.
all of them like that.
Yeah, I know. Dave's a broker in the back, right? So he's working
Not like
that.
that.
So, but the fact is, the more the property sells for, the more they make, right, on that particular transaction. Not that the transaction would close, maybe it'd be too high. But you at least have to understand, if you're naive to that and not know that they may or may not have their own personal agenda in mind, oh yeah, this property's worth $200,000 right now, man, you can sell it for $300,000 all day long, okay? That type of, numbers are great for him or her, but you are the person with the money, the skin in the game, and you only make money if it's profitable. So you've got to question every comp. I've never saw a broker's comps sent to me and I'm like, yeah, I 100% agree with everything there. Very, very rare. Now, when I train a broker, like working with Dave, he's very good at, okay, Randy, so what do you like about this and what don't you like about it and what should I have done different? And that's a relationship. That's the type of broker you want to find that understands you, your needs, and wants to understand how you're seeing it, so that then when he sends me a comp, you know, I can look at it and say, oh yeah, it came from Dave or it came from whoever, and I've trained him, and yeah, I'd look it over and I'm still going to look at it, believe me. Because even if the best people that you've trained, they can still make mistakes. And if I make a mistake that costs me money, I can live with that, but I don't want somebody else's mistake to cost me money that all I had to do was double check that. So I'm responsible for it. And if you haven't been to one of the, how many people have been to one of my property tours where I talk about, okay, so a lot of people. So I talked about raising money, and then a couple ladies and gentlemen that were there, a little circle here on Thursday, I talked about that equity partnership model. So you can see that I'm responsible for making the people that are bringing the money, making them money. If they don't make money on the deal, they're not gonna be happy, and I'm not gonna make any money, because I only make money if what I call the equity partners make money. So again, analyzing that number, it's my responsibility, because I'm on the hook if I make money or don't make money, okay? Appraisal. Appraisal is different than a comp or a CMA, okay? So on an appraisal, it's done by a licensed appraiser. So someone that basically has been trained on evaluating the value of property. It's still an opinion. It's more of an art than it is a science, because there's still things to look, but you want to make it as much of a math formula as possible, but that's an appraisal. Does anybody know how much an appraisal would cost on a single family home around here? Just say, you know, average size home?
It used to be about $350, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'd say 350. Earl said 600, that'd be on the high end. If somebody said that they would do, if somebody said that they were gonna do an appraisal for me and the bank was gonna charge me 600, I'd say, wait a minute, can you choose another appraiser, because that's a little high. But somewhere between 350 on the low end and no more than 600 on the high end. But I think mostly the 350, 400 is where you're gonna be. So that's paying to get that professional opinion on what the property's worth. The bank uses an appraisal when they're going to get financing, when someone's putting financing on that property. So that's different. You see how that's different than a CMA. A CMA is done by a licensed broker, and it's not usually used by the bank. If a licensed broker's doing it, a lot of times they call them a BPO. It's a broker price opinion. Sometimes they'll do that on short sales. So that's another way to evaluate properties, okay, would be do a full-blown appraisal. They talk about the appraised value. Again, that's what the appraiser has came back with, what the appraisal is. If I forget to say and emphasize this, there's another slide that talks about, here's the key to be a successful real estate investor when it comes to flipping properties, is think like an appraiser, okay? Because in most cases, it doesn't matter what you can sell a property for, it's gonna come down to what will that property appraise for. Because if you're doing maybe over improving in an area and you say, oh man, I know I can get 300, I can get a buyer for 300,000, you may be right. You may get a buyer for 300,000, but guess what? It might only appraise at 250, okay? And if it's an FHA appraiser, they're not going to, if you challenge that appraisal, they put another appraiser in, you only can go less, then they choose the less. They don't even do an average. So you're pretty much stuck for 6 months at that 250 price. And I've had situations like that before. So it's very important to look at the deal as an appraiser. That little tip right there probably could have made a difference of about $10,000 in one of the deals that I did when I first got started, before I took this education, before I really evaluated my property as an appraiser. We won't go into a lot about cap rate. Cap rate has to do with rental property. I'm training today about finding fix and flip properties and analyzing fix and flip properties, but I have a whole training on rental properties. If anybody gets involved in our education, you know, we do these study groups on Thursdays. So basically you get 2 hours of me and Bob Tierney every Thursday going through the curriculum like this. And then every other Wednesday down at the South Loop Hotel, that's a fix and flip, by the way, here at South Loop Hotel, I'm doing a thing on rental property, buy and hold. So every other Wednesday, I do a training like this, in addition to all the online training that you get, and that's free as part of the online training. So then we go deeply into cap rate, because I have an entire spreadsheet in calculating cap rate and ROI, return on investment, a cash-on-cash ROI, a spreadsheet that I use to evaluate rental property, okay? But we won't go into that today, but I want to let you know that that's another way to come up with the value of a property. Closing costs, if I mention closing costs are costs that occur when you're buying or selling real estate. You need to know about how much the closing cost is when you buy, how much it is when you sell, so you can calculate that into the profit. Because if you don't calculate that in the profit, and the other part that I don't have up here would be holding costs. Holding costs, you know when you see like fix and flip shows, whether it's on TV or it's an info commercial, and they're throwing out these numbers, right? I bought the property for $100,000. And I put $50,000 into it, and I sold it for $200,000. So we made $50,000 on this deal. No, you didn't, okay? Unless they are including those holding costs and closing costs somewhere on those other numbers. If you're including that in your rehab number, then you're correct. But chances are they're not. They're talking about the rehab. So what are some holding costs? Taxes. Insurance.
Cost of money.
Utilities.
Cost of money, so I usually put that out separately, but cost of money is a holding cost. Utilities, you gotta have the electricity on, and the water on, and the trash. And something else that Pete helps me with, he's one of my project managers, he's in the back, lawn maintenance during the time, you don't calculate that into, right? Lawn, it grows. Who's gonna maintain it? You're gonna get a fine, you're gonna get a ticket while you're doing that project if you don't maintain the outside of the property. So you gotta add all that in the holding costs, okay? And in my spreadsheet that I use, I actually calculate that in, okay?
What figure do you use for us analysts?
Well, I'm gonna show you.
Okay.
Okay, I'll kind of show you what I do on that. And the other thing is marketing costs. And again, that analogy that they show you, or that example they show you on TV or at one of those guru sessions, which by the way, Than Merrill is coming into town, and I got an invitation, I actually might go. I always like to keep abreast of what the competition's doing out there. So I might go on Tuesday if I can fit in my schedule. So when they show you those numbers, they also might not be talking about marketing costs. So in Chicago area, and keep this in mind, there is no fixed amount for a broker fee, all right? That would be illegal. Oh, in Illinois, it's 5% is the broker fee. No, it's always negotiable. It's an open market. You can negotiate with them. Now, the broker might not take it for less than 5%. That's their prerogative, but it's not a set, fee. So, in your areas could be all different, right? So lower priced areas, they might be 6%. Higher priced homes might be 5%, or they might do it for 4%. But whatever that fee is, make sure that you calculate that into your numbers, and I'll show you on my spreadsheet how I do it.
I was just gonna say, you have a relationship with a broker, did you say? If you're, like, they base most on people buying a house every 10 or 15 years, but if you're doing lots of houses, are they willing to negotiate lower because you're a repeat customer?
Yes, that's a good point, and it comes up in my spreadsheet. So I normally don't pay I usually don't pay more than 2.5% when I sell it, rather than approximately 5%. It's usually 2.5% plus a flat fee, which is usually around $375. So, yeah, when I resell it, I usually do it for a flat fee. There's flat fee brokers out there. If you want to list it, some I list with agents, some I have a special relationship that when they have brought the property and they've analyzed it and everything, I'll agree to buy it from them and then sell it for them, basically instead of a wholesale fee. They'll make their money that way. But if I went out and I found the property, for an example, maybe it wasn't even listed, I bought the property, I rehabbed it, now it's time to resell, I usually do a flat fee for $375 and then pay 2.5% to the broker that brings me the buyer. I've even done it this way to motivate and get people to really show my property. Here's another quick little strategy, is that I've done the flat fee listing, and then instead of giving 2.5% to the buyer's broker, I gave 5% to the buyer's broker. I'm doubling their commission. And then as a strategy, I called all the brokers that had listings in that area and say, hey, I see you have a listing at XYZ Street. I actually have a house just down the street from that, and I want to let you know that I'm paying double commission to the buyer's broker. So it's like having 2 listings now in that neighborhood. So I just want to keep that in mind when you're showing your other house. You might want to show my house next if they don't like that house, because you'll make the same commission, you'll make the double commission on my house as well, the 5%. So I've done that when I've had to move properties in there, okay? So hopefully people wrote down that tip, because that could be
That's a
worth a
good
lot
tip.
of money. Okay, so market value, again, that's what the value is currently. It's usually talking about the current condition of the property, what the market value is, as opposed to the ARV, the after rehab value. And then an REO, you'll hear people talk about REO, that's real estate owned. So that's real estate owned by the bank. So when a bank owns, they had to foreclose and they own a property, they call that an REO. So you'll hear that terminology a lot, okay? Okay, first thing you want to do is determine a farm area, is what we'll call it. It's the area that you want to focus in on. The Chicagoland area especially, like if you lived in a small town and you were doing real estate, you know, pretty much your farm area would be that entire town and maybe a couple towns around it. Well, the Chicagoland area, you know, you can get to hundreds of thousands of homes within driving distance, right? So you really want to focus on what market makes the most sense to you in terms of where you live, and then what markets are good markets to do flips in, or if you're doing buy and holds, to do rental properties in. You know, things like the aesthetics, how nice the area looks. The school district is huge. I'm very reluctant to do any fix and flip projects unless it's a highly rated school district. The exception, of course, is Chicago. I've done a few things in Chicago. If you look at the overall rating of Chicago, it's not going to be good, but maybe the local high school, that's a close by high school, might be rated higher. Property taxes and services, the crime rate. There's a website, I think it's real easy. I'll give it to you in case I can't get on it later on. It might, if we go late, I might not get to it. But Trulia.com, Trulia. Trulia.com is one where you can just go and you can see the crime rate very easily. It's even in color, so you can see the good areas and the bad areas. So again, I don't do flips in crime areas. I don't want to do rental properties in high crime areas. If the area is accessible is important to people. If it's trendy, an up and coming area, a lot of times they will buy more for it, public transportation. And then the percent of residential buyers, homeowners versus rentals. You know, there's some area people say, what about doing a fix and flip in XYZ area? Someone just brought it to me the other day. I said, I wouldn't flip in that area, and one of the primary reasons is in that area there's more renters than homeowners, okay? So you want to flip in an area where it's the other way around, and there's almost all homeowners and very few renters.
What
Okay?
about access to like restaurants and shopping? And,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you want to have that as a.
Right, yeah, and I would say that might be part of accessibility, but yeah, that's, yeah, definitely. Those type of little perks, if they're building, oh, they're gonna put in a new mall down there, that's gonna be nice, people are gonna wanna live around that area. Yeah, definitely.
What are the three most important of those? Because you have to choose.
Well, yeah, to me, school district is way, way up there. The crime, because it's a no-go, just based on the crime. I don't even know if I'd put anything else even in that category. Even the property, well, property taxes and services, I mean, that would be like a park district, which is important. So maybe those three, but certainly the school district and the crime. I mean, this can eliminate it for me like that. If it's you know, because I don't want to sell somebody in a house where I wouldn't buy, you know what I mean? I want to be true passion about my house. If I'm showing it, or I'm meeting with them, or whatever, I'm even talking to the broker that's going to show the house, I want it to be honest and sincere. This is a great house. I'd love to, you know, this would be a great house for a family. I'd move my family here in a second, and here's why. You know, I got this, and it's genuine. So that's important. So those two, I think, are definitely deal breakers.